So we'll start right off with our senior team capstone report, and Tina will introduce the speakers, and then we'll take it from there.
All right. Well, lead on this report is Kai Haskins, our student liaison to the board, and I think Kai can speak for himself. So I'll let you introduce our guest and your project and the good work that you're moving forward as part of your capstone.
Awesome. For my group's senior capstone project.
Kai, could you just tell us a little about senior capstones in general first before we get straight into yours?
Sure thing. It's basically it's the culmination of a lot of work that new group students do senior year in mainly the public policy and economics class, but also with tie-ins from the statistics class. And at the end of the year, we attempt to basically draft a piece of public policy and see if we can get that policy put into action somewhere in the county or state, or theoretically federally, if it were ever to get that far. But I don't believe that in the history of the capstone it has.
Give us a few years.
Give us some time. So for my group's capstone project, we're attempting to get the age in Tompkins County to purchase cigarettes raised from 18 to 19, so that it's harder for high school students to have easy access to cigarettes. So we've been working with Samantha Hilson from the T-Free Tompkins and the health department, right? Yeah. So we just, a couple of weeks ago, helped to organize the Cayuga Street Smokeout, which is basically where we challenged, we were over on the porch there, and we were trying to get people to take the challenge to quit smoking for a day, or get a friend to stop smoking for a day or a month. And the New Roots Video Club and Maria Gimma took this footage and then compiled it into this nice little video presentation.
Well, you know, I think the challenge, I don't know if you know this about me, but I have asthma. And I was raised in a household with a smoker. My mother smoked, so she quit when I was about 10 years old. And that was a very tough month. She was very cranky for about a month while she was quitting. But I've seen firsthand what tobacco could do to a person and what it could do to a family. You know, I've known people who have gotten cancer from smoking.
It's a problem that I'm trying to address it, trying to raise awareness for it. And this is what the factors of made. My family has history. My grandma was an addict, so she got busted, so I really felt kind of passionate.
What actions do you think would help keep downtown Ithaca a smoke-free space?
Well, you know,
Mr. Mayor.
yeah, it's a question for me particularly. Well, 4 years ago, I was on the city council, and I was actually the person who proposed. I was the lead advocate for banning smoking downtown. So we passed that 4 years ago. We're trying to make it work. I think what we can do actually is expand the parameters of the smoke-free boundary. So beyond the commons, I think we could include all of Cayuga Street and even go further down State Street. I think we could add more signage. We don't have enough signs, not enough people know that it's not okay to smoke here. And I think we can do more enforcement, more police officers, but not just police officers, ambassadors, downtown ambassadors, walking around making sure people aren't smoking. So I think from the city's perspective, there's quite a bit we can do.
So New York City recently passed legislation to raise the age to buy cigarettes to 21. What's your opinion on that, and do you think that the rest of New York State should follow that example?
So before we banned smoking downtown, the first thing I tried to do was actually raise the purchase age of tobacco in Tompkins County to age 19.
Right.
I did that about 6 years ago, and it did not work. I failed with that. But I think what New York City's done is terrific. It's bringing it up out of high schools. So now nobody in high school is going to be able to buy those cigarettes and sell them to their younger classmates. I think it's going to stop. Most of the people who start smoking by the age of 15 or 16 years old.
Yeah.
So if we can push that age back, we prevent a lot of people from being sick. and from down from the faculty. So I think it's great, and I think a lot of cities and counties can follow New York City's lead, and I hope that we follow the lead.
Great. And finally, what do you want to say in support of those who would like to quit as part of the Cayuga Street Smokeout?
Oh gosh, I'd say God bless them and good luck. It's possible. I know that it's one of the hardest things to ever do, and I know because I saw that firsthand. I'd say while you're quitting, be nice to your kids. Okay? It's not that. There are people here to help you. Tobacco-Free Tompkins has all sorts of resources for people who like to quit smoking, and they can walk through it step by step.
Great. Great. Well, thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you, sir.
Great. Samantha, do you have anything you wanted to add to that?
No, that was great. I mean, I hadn't seen this video yet, but it was very nice. And we were very excited that the mayor came by, as well as the county legislator, Jim Dennis, got by, and the police chief in the city of Ithaca, and one of the aldermen, Steph Mertag, also came by and spoke with students, and all of them were videoed with a similar interview. So it was definitely a great success. It was part of the Great American Smokeout, which was the real, one of the reasons why we had it on that specific day. And we sort of just spun it as this Cayuga Street Smokeout to build awareness about this block, and South Cayuga block being smoke-free also. And I really enjoyed working with Kai and Grant, who was also in the video, on just engaging in this discussion about a variety of issues around tobacco control. And so we're gonna keep working. This was sort of a kickoff to get more students engaged, and so hopefully we can move forward with it. And I really support, or appreciate Tina's support. She was very instrumental in making all the logistics of this, and it went really well, so thank you.
Great. Grant very much wanted to be here, but he had to work. Here is a copy of the newsletter that went out with that after the Cayuga Street Smokeout.
This is, you guys wrote this newsletter, or where did this newsletter come from?
It's the Tobacco-Free Tompkins monthly newsletter, yeah.
Kai, where does the video fit in this capstone project that I take it is culminating sometime in the spring?
Yeah, that video itself doesn't it doesn't necessarily relate exactly to the piece of policy we're trying to enact, but it's one, it will fulfill part of we have a required 5 volunteer hours as part of the capstone project in our given societal category that we're trying to address, so that's some of it. And also it was just, it was a good, useful thing to do. Also it shows that the mayor is in support of the piece of policy that we're attempting to enact.
Okay, sorry for being nitpicky, but
Oh, that's,
I
no,
do
please, please be very nitpicky.
what was the business with the locker and the backflip?
I have no idea. I had no hand in making the video. Grant and myself helped to organize the event itself, and then the video club took the footage and put together the video. The best answer I think I can give you is that those were healthy kids not smoking.
I have to, pardon me again, it doesn't convince me that you know what you're doing yet.
Okay. I mean, for the most part, I don't know what I'm doing yet. We haven't fully dived into the capstone project. So yeah, we don't fully know what we're doing, but we're getting there.
And you're going where with the policy proposal? To what body?
To the county legislature.
Thanks.
looks to me like there's this two-pronged program, which is one is education and two is legislation. And so you're trying to figure out how to hook those together in kind of the most appropriate way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I want to say, it was really great to have your presence out here raising awareness about this issue. The vast majority of Newbert students don't smoke. We do have, like every high school, we have some students who do, and we also have at this end of the commons, we have when the ban on smoking went to the commons, a lot of people moved down to this end, to find a spot to smoke if if they felt the need to do that. And there's been a sort of a general assumption that everyone who's under 30 who's at this end of the commons who's smoking is a New Group student. So I think that your campaign in collaboration with Samantha and the Tompkins County Department of Health really demonstrates a different facet of that issue. So I think you're great, and I really want to thank you, Samantha, for your awesome collaboration with our students and the resources you provided, and including just such a generosity of time and commitment to this project. It's just been really exciting. I'm looking forward to seeing where that goes next as we move forward with, like Jason said, the various prongs of this campaign.
Great. Thanks, Kai.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to move forward to old business, and the first item is the admissions policy. So we discussed this last time at our meeting, and taking into account the comments that everybody made, Tina and her administrative team have drafted a new version for us to consider. And so Tina, did you just want to introduce this to us?
Yeah, so again, this admissions policy was part of our original charter. So primarily, in addition to a few tweaks around language that update that we discussed before, the primary thing is the addition of clarification about when students are eligible to enroll in the school. We have been admitting students on a rolling basis, and often, without thinking about like how many seats, if you will, that we have at any given grade. So one of the questions that our authorizer raised was, what are your policies related to enrollment and admissions? And so this is last time that we talked about this, we looked at the data in terms of student success rates relative to when they were entering new routes. I don't think that you were there for this conversation, Kai.
No, I believe I was at a rehearsal.
At a where?
I think we were doing the dining room.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's right, which was awesome, by the way. And so we took I took a stab at drafting something that would provide guidance for staff around how we're regulating the inflow of students into the school, so that we have students coming in at times that make sense, as opposed to coming in at more random times, or whatever time of the year that they first indicate interest in admissions. So it's really that second paragraph that is the only one in this policy that is new.
Anybody have any questions right now?
Yes, I do. First of all, I think the second paragraph is helpful clarification, given what we discussed last time. Pretty clear, pretty straightforward, and to the degree that I understand the problem, it appears to address the problem. So thanks and congratulations for that. I have a couple of small questions and maybe a global question. On the smaller questions are on the second page. the first two paragraphs in the included bullets.
Where it says special efforts, starts at special efforts.
Starts with recruitment of students at risk of academic failure.
Okay,
And my question includes the recruitment of students who are English language learners. Question number one is there a short version of where these two quite different benchmarks came from? One, the at-risk benchmark is,
Equal to or greater than
yeah,
the average percentage in Lincoln City School
Yeah.
District.
why does one care about that?
It is a general, I'm not sure what to call it, but it's a general benchmark that charter schools seek to strive for.
So the closest school district is the benchmark?
Yes,
Or
the benchmark is the district that you're located in physically.
Okay,
Yeah, so there's a lot of comparison to the local district that you're located in.
second question is that, with this preface, I'm mildly troubled by the language in the second line of the first paragraph at the top of the page.
Which page?
Second
It
page, it
says
says,
special efforts.
special efforts will be made to recruit students at risk of academic failure by focusing on urban neighborhoods and rural communities. I wouldn't want to be caught saying that as identifying people by the place they live as being at risk. I don't think. I'm interested if anybody else sees it differently, because I could hear an argument for different, but it suggests some, I'll put it this way, negative bias. But maybe there's a reason, maybe that's not the way others see it, and maybe,
I wonder if there's a way to refocus. One question would be, this language was part of the original charter application, right?
Yeah.
So it was laying out, answering the question, how do you ensure that you're reaching all parts of the community? And of course, charter schools are often accused of quote-unquote cherry-picking students, right? So the assumption being in this community, you'd be seeking to reach out to demographics that you would feel would have a high chance of academic success, right? And so the intent here was reaching out rather than just to the suburbs of Geneva Heights, focusing on some people raised that question, when we first opened, is this a school that is only for elite students? Are you gonna try to cherry pick, pick of his best and brightest, and create an exclusive school that is not open to all students? And so partly the language here is assuring that recruitment efforts will focus on all parts of the community, including our urban centers and our rural areas in the wider region. So, and it identifies some particular community organizations, which we have indeed developed working relationships with in order to conduct outreach and make sure that students know that New Roots Charter School is a public school that's open to any and all students who are interested in attending, which, even in our 5th year, is not something that's necessarily as widely known as we might hope or expect it would be at this point, so.
although I argue that the admissions policy paragraphs 1 and 2 say that. Along these same lines, and I appreciate everybody indulging me because I'm new to this and I have questions that you've already debated, so I won't take up much more of your time. The second benchmark regarding English language learners, that's a different standard than the one above. And why not use ICSD's percentage of Asian American community members or Hispanic population, why a different standard?
You mean because it says Ithaca's Asian American community,
Well, it's not, it doesn't peg
doesn't.
success to exceeding the ICSD.
Well, actually, what's interesting about this one is that the Charter Schools Institute has just, and I'm not sure if this is also State Education Department schools as well, but they've now created an actual target of percentage of students that we should be targeting for enrollment as English language learners. And it is a comparison to the Ithaca City School District. And in our case, it's 1.1%, so 1 to 2 students is our actual target that's been established by the State University of New York for English language learners. And of course, if we're going to develop a meaningful program for English language learners, optimally, we would have a larger population than that. So, but I think that certainly this language could be clarified to reflect that we would be attempting to reach or exceed the targets established by the Charter Schools Institute.
I don't see where the benchmark is here. I just see that the statement about the demographics of the city.
Special efforts will be made, I guess.
But it doesn't say that, there's no mathematical benchmark here. It just says special efforts will be made in the context of the following demographic makeup of the city.
Got it. Yeah, you're right. Both of those sort of dovetail to my last, and let me make it a comment as opposed to a question. I guess if I were on a subcommittee to write admission policies of New Roots Charter School from the beginning, I would have stopped at paragraph 2 on page 1. Much of the rest of this, not all, but much of the rest of it is operational detail that's essentially, in my mind at least, mostly administrative functions.
Like lotteries and waiting lists and all that kind of
Yeah,
stuff.
not quite clear whether this creates some kind of additional obligation to the board to police all this in some way.
That's a point well taken.
Or whether our fingers are deep in the pie where they don't necessarily need to be.
I guess a point of clarification is this represents the operational procedures that we've been using, but, I mean, I guess one of the options the board could have is just to say that the first 2 paragraphs are the policy, and then do away with the rest of it as policy, knowing that that's the procedure.
I have a small issue with on page 1, paragraph 2, the policy that would only allow students in grades 11 and 12 to begin at the very start of the school year. I wonder if it wouldn't be more effective to say that they can start mid-year, but it has to be on a quarter-by-quarter basis. So instead of just being able to enroll and, like start the next day, it would have to be until a new quarter was beginning. Because I think we may potentially be cutting ourselves off from good students. Like I know last year, Grant moved here like mid-year and started mid-year, so that was just a thought that I had.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
Well, it flies in the face of the issue that you laid out in some detail in several meetings. And Kai, you were at your rehearsal, so you didn't hear Tina's latest review of this, but essentially my takeaway was that, I'll call them older, juniors and seniors presenting themselves after the beginning of school have historically not done well as a collective, not necessarily whoever the young person was you mentioned, but by and large, those students don't appear to succeed. And there's a concern that the school isn't able to serve them successfully And that seems to be a data point that suggests that the chances of being successful with those students is unlikely or highly unlikely.
Okay.
It's like an actuarial analysis in that every male driver under the age of 21 isn't necessarily at high risk of having an accident, but the statistics show that males under the age of 21 cost insurance companies way more than males over the age of 21. So it's kind of potentially individual people being penalized because of the norm. But as Joe said, our experience has been that those students have a very low chance of success. So.
And in particular, the graduation rates are significantly different for students who've been here only 2 years or less compared to students who've been here more than 2 years.
Sure.
Is that the reason for the leading up to principal's decision for 9 to 10 versus instead of 11 and 12?
Different reason, isn't it?
Yeah, well, when students are coming in grades 9 and 10, ideally, I mean, we do want them to come in and get as much of our program as possible, right? So we don't want to delay in bringing them in and getting, because the more years, the more time they spend here, the more successful that they are.
Right.
Even if they're coming in a more compromised position.
It's, my own experience indicates that students at any level, but focusing on the 9 and 10, if they come in sort of mid-course, the second month of the first quarter or the first or second month of the third quarter, it's difficult to orient them to the school practices. It's difficult for teachers to pick up and help them understand the curriculum and where they are and how they can either, quote, catch up or adapt to a different form of curriculum. And so it's a combination, in my mind, of what's actually best for students based on experience, as well as a matter of making life as, this is the wrong way to say it, but I'll say it anyway because it's already out. It's an administrative and a teacher convenience not to have to pick up somebody right in the middle of an academic quarter or semester. So that's.
Well, certainly we can start, I was just wondering the difference, if there is that tipping point at the end of 10th grade, if the data said, as you said.
And that's why, yeah.
Yeah, something I wanted to also mention, historically, we've had our Johnson Board Fellows join us at the table, and maybe if we're gonna include them in conversation, we should invite them to do that, because we don't wanna create confusion about conversation happening between at random times, which I sort of, I didn't think about that when I first answered you, Daniel, but just by point of process.
Yeah, so I would invite the Johnson Board Fellows to join us up here at the table.
You have to bring your chairs, guys.
Well, there's one chair, there's one chair.
Yeah, just bring the chair in here.
Thank you.
Thanks for pointing that out.
All right, so this is how I like to move forward. We have this basically as a motion, so I'm gonna bring this as a formal motion in just a second. Once it's motioned and seconded, then we can decide whether or not we want to amend it or not. Joe's actually made 2 potential amendments, which I will reiterate as I understand them. So for first step, I move that we adopt this policy. Do I hear a second to that motion? Okay, so it's now officially in motion. Now we have 1 or 2 amendments, but I think, Joe, the second amendment trumps the first amendment, which is that Joe has made a suggested amendment that the admission policy stop after the second paragraph on page 1, and that the rest of this becomes basically procedure rather than policy, right? So the policy is what guides what you do, and the procedure is how you carry it out. So as I understand it, Joe, you're suggesting that the policy is the first two paragraphs, and the procedure is the whole rest of it, so that we should separate those, so that if there is a requirement, if there's a need to change the procedure, we don't have to go back and change the entire policy all over again. So I personally would support that. What do you guys, what do other people think?
I would support that as well.
Okay, so,
I would also say that this, as with all policies, once we have the final form, that our attorney will take a look at it and make sure that it's
yeah, it has to go
ready
through
to
the,
roll out.
it has to go through the attorney, and it probably has to go through the Charter Institute also, but,
Yeah, that was the only, I mean, my main concern, and the only concern actually, was where is the charter school institute going to come down on this? Do they expect this level of detail in part of art?
Well, I mean, it could be argued that, I mean, this level of detail is already in our charter, so it would be part of the charter, this description of how we conduct ourselves through the process. So I don't think that they would be concerned about the fact that we're adopting a policy that doesn't have that procedural information.
okay, so, we have a motion to amend our admissions policy to be just the first two paragraphs. Do I have a second for that
Second.
motion? All those in favor of that motion, raise your hands. So that's unanimous. Okay, so now, we have a motion before us, which is to adopt this admissions policy, which is the first two paragraphs of this document. All those in favor of that, please raise your hand. And it is unanimous. Okay. So just to reiterate, Tina, our admissions policy is now the first two paragraphs on this piece of paper. The rest of this has become procedure. Thank you, everybody. Joe, thank you for looking at these carefully. Some of these things we've written so long ago that we don't even
Not even
see
looking
it
at that anymore.
anymore.
So thank you, yeah.
So it's great to have a fresh pair of eyes look at these things. Okay, so, all right. So, right, we've been informed by our attorney that, just for those of you, there's only very, very special reasons why you can have an executive session. And so, in order to try to follow not only the letter of the law, but the spirit of the open meetings law, we check with our attorney every time that we are considering an executive session. And our attorney has informed us that this particular case is not an appropriate time for an executive session. So we are not going to have an executive session right now. So you can just scratch off B. And we're going right on to C, which is consideration of the principal and superintendent contract. And just so everybody knows, the principal and superintendent is one person. That's not two people. So that would be Tina. So Roger, Roger is the chair of the personnel committee, and so he's going to be introducing this.
Sure. The current contract for the principal superintendent will expire on June 30th. As chair of the personnel committee, you have before you a copy of the contract that's up for approval. I'd like to make a motion to move to have the board to accept this contract.
I second that motion. So, discussion. This has come up a couple times now, so I think everybody has had a chance to consider this and to consider the implications. We discussed this, it was either the last meeting or 2 meetings ago, I forget now, in open session. So, I don't think there's anything in here that's a surprise, but.
I just have some clarification.
Sure.
Let's see. The term of employment and the paragraph, agreement renewal paragraphs, am I correct that essentially the principal and superintendent would always have a 5-year contract, presuming annual renewals? Is that this is a so-called evergreen contract, right? It rolls over every year, starting out with a 5-year term, and then at the end of essentially at the end of the school year, or before that, the board has to indicate to the principal / superintendent where we propose to renew for yet another year, and it bumps it back to 5.
Right.
That's correct.
So it's,
It
okay.
rolls.
It rolls, and it rolls at essentially a 5-year.
5-year time period. That's correct.
Yep.
Has there been discussion of shorter and longer terms as,
Many.
In a word.
okay.
And yeah, that's all I can see. So the general idea here is that, you know, what is kind of best practices at charter schools, what's best practices at any school,
Mhm.
and what's best for New Roots School.
Mhm.
So, and in our discussions, this is what we have right now kind of settled on, is what seems to be the best combination of giving Tina the mandate that she needs to do the things that need to be done, to give the backing of the board, for the support of her leadership, as well as, having a contract which doesn't go on so long that we can't hold Tina or her successor accountable for performance. So that's what we were trying to balance in these things.
Okay. On the second page regarding retirement benefits, the principal superintendent will be entitled to participate in the retirement system for public school teachers. Are there cost implications for New Roots in that?
There's huge cost implications. The issue is that, as I understand it, once you're in, you're always in, and Tina and all of our teachers were signed up for that when we opened. So, as I understand it, there's nothing to be done with that one way or the other. I mean, whether you like it or you don't like it, we did it, right?
Yeah, and the language is actually, it's actually a mandatory participation because the school is enrolled. So there's not actually a choice in that regard.
Okay. And so, in essence, the state comptroller tells New Roots as well as everybody else,
Right.
this is your this is what the school system or school has to pitch in.
Well, yeah, and we had made the decision right at the beginning to participate in NYSTERS, and it's not a revocable decision once you make it, and it's certainly one that we would like to be able to take a look at, you know, it is very costly to the school, and it's not necessarily that all of us who are enrolled in NYSTERS feel that it's the best use of those retirement dollars on our behalf, you know, because it's a system designed for our era in my estimation, and but here we are, right?
Do you think it would be appropriate just to take out the be entitled and just say the principal and superintendent will participate?
Must.
Since this suggests that there's an option when there isn't one. And again, this isn't, I mean, the point is, this is not us making this determination, this is made for us.
Right.
So I would suggest that all we do is we just take out the word be entitled to. So there's 3 words, be entitled to, and so it just says the principal will participate in the New York State Teachers Retirement System.
Ah, seems like a directive.
Well, it is at this point, right? There's nothing we can do about it.
I've got 2 more.
Okay.
The holidays, in the back of my head, there are about 20 holidays that most employees at most organizations have recognized. That may be off number 2. This is 11. Was there any discussion of additional holidays or are there other holidays that the principal superintendent is going to be serving that are other employees, typical employees are granted time off for? These may all fall within the 9 or 10 months of the normal school year, and that may be all there are.
Right. Yeah, I think that, that's a really good question, but it's not come up that there's been time that there's been that discrepancy, so I think that this serves.
This is a pretty substantive list. Days.
Nobody's complained so far.
Okay.
Either the principal or the superintendent.
Yeah.
When I had a job, I would, and for an employer, I would love to have these days off.
Yeah, and I'd love to get to a place where I actually take those days off.
That's a different
That's a
story.
different story. That's a different story.
Evaluations, are there somewhere else a series of criteria that govern the evaluation?
Yes, yeah, that's separate from this document. Yeah,
Okay.
we form a subcommittee, a principal evaluation subcommittee when it's time for that.
And we
Well-
had the last, I think you got a copy, Joe, of last year's evaluation.
Yes.
And I didn't send, we didn't send it again along with this, but.
I did, I guess now then what I would be asking is, are you aware now of the criteria that are going to be applied to your performance for this year?
I think the answer to that is yes and no, in that we are still working on some goals for, now that we're through the charter renewal process, we're gonna establish some mid-year goals that we're working on. So I think there would be, for those, there would be indicators in the first 6 months around progress toward goals. And I think I already know what those things are, but we haven't set them down in writing yet. And we'll talk about them at the next meeting, it's the plan, the personnel.
Yeah, I think the process was that we wanted to get through the review, Charter School Institute review to know specifically what it is that may direct us towards specific goals. And so we didn't want to set up a series of goals and then have to go back to change them, but I think we're in a better position now, so.
Is it a goal to begin or either end the year or begin the next year with the criteria already, or at least the goals in place?
In place.
Yeah,
Yes.
this
Yes.
year we specifically held it off because, as Roger said, why set goals before we hear back from the Charter School Institute?
Well, the goal of the first half of the school year was to get the chart.
Well,
Process.
Right.
I mean, that was,
Do we know concretely how long we've been reviewed for?
How long we've been what?
Reviewed for?
No.
We don't know.
Slash have we been renewed?
We've not had any information back yet.
Okay.
It's too soon.
Too soon.
These things take a long
Yeah.
time.
Do we know when we'll find out officially?
I believe by the end of February. Yeah.
Okay, so just to make sure everybody's clear, on page 2 of this contract, where it says in bold-faced retirement benefits, it says the principal and superintendent, and we're removing the words, be entitled to. And so the sentence now reads, the principal and superintendent will participate in this New York State Teacher Retirement System. Okay, I forgot, was this a motion yet?
Yeah.
Okay, so all those in favor, raise your hand. And it passes unanimously. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
All right, so we have finished a kind of a nuts and boltsy kind of meeting, but really, really important stuff that allows the administration to do the work that they need to do to run the school. So I move that we adjourn this meeting. Do I hear a second? All right.
You could have a second.
All those in favor, raise your hand. And we are adjourned at 6:26.
All right.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Jason.
Thank you. You know, as soon as I said 6:26, I was thinking,
Where is, yeah, always sit at the table.
all right,
Yeah.
thanks.
That way, you can get out early.
So you have breaks?
Yes.
Kind of, sorta?
We could just